Well, good morning. Welcome to Debbie's Back Porch. So glad to have you with us. Today we're cooking fried summer squash. And it's that time of year. And if you have a garden, you're probably covered in squash. So if you're looking around saying, what am I going to do with all this squash? Here's one of the things you can do. Well, I have sliced up here a mixture of my lemon squash and some desi squash, which is new for me this year. Just slice them between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch. And I'm putting on a little freshly ground black pepper and salt. And that's basically the only seasonings we're going to use here. And I don't have an ingredient list posted because this is so very simple. I'll just show you. And I'll just stir that seasoning around and make sure that it's all covered. And then that's about 1/4 cup of buttermilk. And you can just use regular milk, but buttermilk I find makes the breading stick a little bit better. So I'm just stirring this around. Gonna get a little milk on all the squash. And this is self-rising flour. If you use all-purpose flour, add a little salt, just a pinch. And I put a little matzo meal in here just for the crunch. I'm not saying how much because it depends on how many squash you have. You just want to make sure you have enough to cover all the squash. Some folks add a little cornmeal. I don't, because when you're frying, cornmeal has a tendency to burn in spots, and I just don't like how that looks. And as usual, I'm starting with cast iron, and I have about 1 inch of melted lard. You can use oil, whatever kind of shortening you have. I just like to cook these in lard. And we want it to the temperature where you get a good sizzle, and I've showed you how to test that. And we're just going to put these in a single layer. And follow the principles of frying. Put them in, leave them alone until they start to brown. And if you're new to my videos, you may not have heard this before, but the secret to frying food is just not to get too busy with it. Get the fat hot enough so that you get a good sizzle immediately. Put the food in, leave it alone until a crust starts to form. You see, we're starting to get browning on one side. This is about 1.5 to 2 minutes on each side. We don't want to overcook these, but we want them a little crunchy on the outside. Fried squash should have a little crunch on the outside, but be very tender and juicy inside. So we don't want to overcook. So I go about 1 minute at a time, 1.5 minutes, turn them, check for brownness, another 1.5 minutes, turn them, check again. And this is what we're going for, a nice crispy brown on both sides. And then we're going to take them out and drain them. I have a rack over here with a paper towel to catch the oil. And these are pretty tender, so you want to handle them fairly carefully. That little tiny black spot you see is from the chip that I put in to test the heat to start with. I probably should have fished it out. I'm going to finish frying these up, plate up the squash, and show you what we've got. So here are my fried squash, and this is a plate that's all from my garden, by the way. I just love it when you get these first products from your garden. I want to try to show you the inside. See, they're crispy on the outside, but inside they're almost custardy and very naturally sweet. And you can freeze them and use them many ways, but for fried like this, if you want this kind of texture, you pretty much need to cook them fresh. And so in the summer when we're getting them prolifically, I fry a good many squash. So I hope you enjoy this. I hope you try it. This is kind of a traditional old way of cooking squash. Thank you for joining us on Debbie's Back Porch. I hope to see you again tomorrow.